But for the longest time, the FBI would run these organizations. They'd infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan, and they'd be there just to. It was like what the Cheka did with the Trust to get the Bolsheviks who were outside the country, who were in opposition to Lenin and the other people. Felix Dzerzhinsky ran that. And he was able to bring in the guy that Ian Fleming used as the model for James Bond, Sidney Riley, and kill him. And what they did was they created every anti-Bolshevik organization outside of Russia was run by Felix Dzerzhinsky and the Cheka, which was the predecessor to the KGB. And so they wanted to know who their opposition was. And so they did that. And in a similar vein, we've had the FBI over and over again. And as I said, Andrew Napolitano just went through this long list of all the times that they've done it, and they're still doing it. You put yourself out there and you start talking trash about the government and get somebody else who's talking trash, and they're not too bright. And so you lead them along. You go, let's finally do something about this. Now, I've got some plans about how we can kidnap Whitmer, or we can blow things up, or this or that. And they'll get the person they'll come up with a plan. They'll egg this person along. They'll give them a fake bomb and say, go take this and park this here, and we'll blow it up and all this kind of stuff. And then they arrest the guy and make themselves heroes. They're like firemen who set fire so they can put them out. But do you understand how similar this is to Trump's role? Everybody talks about what the FBI is doing. Do you realize that the biggest agent provocateur that the FBI could possibly have is Benedict Donald? Telling all these people, come on, it'll be wild. We're going to take our government back. Yeah, I really won the presidency. We're going to take it back by force or whatever. Just strength of numbers. Show up on January the 6th and go over to that building. I'll meet you over there. He is the biggest agent provider. You want to talk about Ray Epps. Ray Epps is the effort of Darren Beatty and Alex Jones and Steve Bannon to misdirect you away from them and away from Trump to somebody else. They were the ones who got everybody to go. Even if Ray Epps was one of the many informants, and I was telling people it was going to be informants. I told people that up to the morning of January the 6th, but now we still see people getting arrested. I mean, Trump set everybody up like this. I've seen so many people's lives destroyed. See, Joe Biggs given a prison sentence, I think, of 17 years. Mike Lindell, a billionaire, now bankrupted with all this stuff. Why? Because he foolishly followed this Judas goat, Benedict Donald. A lot of peacefully assembled people are going to jail for Donald Trump. And because of that, let's also not just, it is Biden that's doing this, but Trump was the Judas goat leading them into it. And he's still doing this. Let me give you an example. Because he hates Mark Milley, because Mark Milley has said, defined Trump's character for people publicly as well. He said, why was Mark Milley not before a firing squad? And then he's got all these people on social media saying, yeah, we need to kill people like Mark Milley. Do they not realize how they're being set up on social media by this narcissistic jerk at the very least? Yeah, they come in, they say, one person says, named Vicky, she says, treason is treason. There's only one cure for treason, being put to death. And look, I see that as protected speech, but you understand, it's going to be used by this criminal Biden administration to attack people. We're well beyond the point where anybody ought to naively think that they can talk trash like that and not be targeted by this criminal FBI and this criminal Biden administration. This is a way of incriminating people, and Trump is still goading them into this just like he goaded them into January the 6th. And so you've got these articles, and they're being passed during, many articles being written on mainstream media, put up by Drudge. Cynthia, another one, a Trump supporter, told the networks that call them, NBC called people on this. So this is a report from Raw Story. But NBC is doing stories on it. CNN is doing stories on it. And Biden and the FBI and this corrupt Department of Justice is going to do a number on these people. And she said she was disappointed that Milley hadn't already been executed. Again, he is nothing more than, the kind of FBI informant that lures people into this stuff. And he is still doing that role. Most of the supporters who agreed to speak on camera to NBC agreed with Trump's comments about his former top military advisor. Another person, registered Republican, said, "We used to execute or imprison people for all treasonous actions, I see. Now, in this day and age, we just throw it underneath the rug." The thing they're most concerned about is not Milley's support of the Ukrainian war. It's not Milley, essentially sodomizing the military with his, ESG stuff. No, what they're concerned about is that he insulted Trump. That's treason. That's treason. He said he made a phone call to the Chinese and said, Trump is kind of nutsy, but don't worry. Don't get a trigger happy finger button on the nukes. So stay calm or whatever. And that's what they're calling treason. So again, while these people are constantly being led by Trump to do things that are going to, whether or not they should, and I don't think they should be. I think people ought to be able to say, well, that's treason, and we know the treason, but that's not the way this is going to be handled. And you can already see how these people are being set up by mainstream media so that the corrupt Department of Justice can come in on them. But they're being set up ultimately by Trump. And Trump is arguing that his role it entitles him to absolute immunity now in terms of election interference. His lawyers are saying that any attempts to cast doubts on the 2020 election fell within his duties as president and are not subject to criminal prosecution. The claims were, quote, at the heart of his official responsibilities. I agree. I don't think it's a criminal offense to question elections. And of course, as we point out over and over again, the left has constantly done that. They did it when he was elected. They questioned it. They came up with a false conspiracy theory about Russia and all the rest of this stuff. But, it's interesting that he's waited until this point in time to make this argument. Why didn't he do it earlier? And why isn't there any immunity for the people that followed him? He had 2 weeks to give them that immunity as president. And he didn't do it because all he was concerned about was himself. He didn't do anything to protect the January 6ers who had followed him because he was running scared. He didn't want charges against him. Now that charges are against him, he's making death threats to people who have criticized him, and his supporters are repeating those death threats. The acts alleged in the indictment lie firmly within the outer perimeter, they said, of the president's official responsibility, argued his lawyers. Mr. Trump is charged with conspiracy to defraud the U.S. And that's why I say I don't think that he defrauded the U.S. I think he defrauded his own followers. I think he defrauded the MAGA people.